Yo, howdy, bon dia, welcome to this week's episode of Tristan Take Video. It's currently Friday. I'm about 80 kilometers into a 220 kilometer ride from Andorra, where I've been for the last few days, back to Girona, which is home, Girona in Spain. It's actually my 5-year Girona-versary today, the day that I packed up everything in my life, condensed everything down to a bike bag, a duffel bag of kit and a backpack with my camera gear. I jumped on a plane in Sydney, Australia, one way, and I flew my way across to Spain, and I haven't looked back since. Today I'm going to be answering your questions about why I quit my life in Sydney and moved to the other side of the world, along with a whole bunch of other questions that you guys asked me last night. So grab a beer, grab a wine, grab a coffee, or maybe even just grab a glass of water. And yeah, let's do it. Okay, so first questions first, how do you mentally prepare for a long bike ride? This is a really good question because of the fact that I believe that cycling is as much physical as it is mental. And I think that the way you approach it mentally is what allows your body to do what we do. Today, I'm riding 220 kilometers, which sounds like a lot of distance. It is a lot of distance, it's a lot of hours on the bike, but for something like this, you've got to go into it with a positive mindset. I think that if you start out thinking, this is a massive day, am I going to make it? How am I going to make it? You kind of get lost in the overall picture. I think it's more important to approach it in smaller steps. You go, I'm going to make it through that first 50 kilometers maybe, and then I'm going to have a break. I'm going to have some food. I'm going to jump back on the bike and recognize that all it is a bike ride. Once you start doing that, you break it into these smaller chunks. You start to realize that all you're doing is riding your bike along, and eventually you're going to reach your destination. Don't overthink these things before you go into them. Even if it's bigger than you've ever done before, just know that at the end of the day, you put one foot in front of the other and you get to where you want to go. Don't let the size of the ride defeat you before you've even started or even began to try. Have I ever ridden in the UK? I have actually ridden in the UK, but not a lot. My family on my father's side live in London, and I've been to London to visit them. While I was there, I ducked to the Giro cafe in Isha and I grabbed one of their curve bikes and went out for a spin. I've done a little bit in the Surrey Hills, but not a lot. I have been up Box Hill. I'm keen at some point to go back to Box Hill and give it a proper nudge on my BMC. But other than that, I haven't actually done too much in the UK. I've been meaning to get up to the Peak District and the Lake District for the last few years to check it out. I hear very good things, but haven't yet. To be honest, the weather doesn't inspire me over there as much as it does here. As you can see, I got some pretty nice weather where I am. So yeah, I have ridden in the UK, but not a lot. So next question, have I ever considered doing a triathlon? My running is pretty fast. Yes, I have considered doing a triathlon, but as soon as it gets to the point where I need to run or swim, I decide that I don't want to. I did get into running back in October in the off season when I was off the bike for a few weeks. I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. And I think it's probably because I didn't commit enough time to it. But when it comes to the bigger picture of doing a triathlon, I think the amount of training that I'd need to do across swimming and running and what I need to give up on the bike, for me, it wouldn't fulfill me as much as I find focusing on the one sport. But yeah, if someone gave me the opportunity to do maybe the bike leg of an Ironman or something like that, I'd do that just so I could go and demolish the bike leg or go as hard as I can. But in terms of committing time to learning to run properly, learning to swim properly, and reaching a point where I feel like I'm at a good enough level to compete, I think it'll just take more time than I want to commit. All right, so what sports are my favorite outside of cycling? To me, my life has always been centered around 3 sports. That's surfing, skiing, and riding. And ever since I was pretty much a teenager, all my holidays and all my trips and all my enjoyable times in my life has been based around one of those 3 sports. I learned to surf when I was probably about 10, but as an Australian growing up a few Ks from the beach, or 10, 15 Ks from the beach, you learn to surf quite early on and it becomes a big part of your life. All kids in Australia go to the beach and learn to do surf lifesaving, or they learn to body surf, or they learn to body board. And so I was a part of that. I didn't go to surf lifesaving as a kid, but I did go and get into surfing, going to the beach every weekend for years and years and years. And it was my biggest passion as a teenager. And a large portion of my personal photography work was based around surfing in the ocean before I left Australia. If you do want to see any of my photos from the surf, definitely check out my website. I'll put a link down here to it. But yeah, the other one is skiing's been a massive part of my life. There's not as much skiing in Australia as there is over in Europe or in the US, but I definitely had the privilege of having parents who took me skiing when I was a kid, and it's something that I got super passionate about. I think because of the freedom and the autonomy with skiing, where you can go anywhere on the mountain and it doesn't really matter. Also, you can go really, really quick. As a 10-year-old, when I first went skiing, getting myself up to the fastest possible speed that I could go, just straight lining it down these icy mountains. Luckily didn't have any big stacks, so I didn't get too traumatized from skiing. But yeah, surfing, skiing, and riding, those are the three sports in my life that I've always been super passionate about. Alrighty, now this is a really good question. What was the exact point that I thought, I'm moving my life to Europe? I'm going to answer the question that I titled this video with, why I quit my life and moved to Spain, in a little bit. But the exact moment that I decided to up and leave Australia, I don't want to say there was one exact moment. I think that it was the culmination of coming to Girona on holiday. At the time, I was in a relationship. I came to Girona on holiday, and I just had one of the greatest times by myself that I think I'd ever had in my life. I was 25 or 26 at the time. I realized that I was really, really happy being by myself. Now, maybe that was an indicator that the relationship wasn't working and that I wasn't meant to be with her. But yeah, I had this amazing time, and I got home and I thought to myself, far out, that's a place I would like to spend some more time. And then the following year in 2016, I actually broke up with her and I came back to Girona for another holiday to decompress. And again, I had this incredible 2-week holiday in September that just kind of really laid the foundation for, like, yeah, now you can do anything you want to in the entire world. Why not move to Girona? I mean, you loved it. Life's an adventure. What am I gonna lose? I'm lucky enough that I have a British passport. When I moved, I actually got my residency, so that's how I live here now. But yeah, in terms of the exact moment that I decided to go, fuck it, I'm leaving, I think it was probably just that sort of 2015, 2016 time where I was in my mid-20s and I worked for myself as a photographer and I needed the freedom. The other thing is, and I don't want to dwell on it too much because I'm not a big fan of being too negative, Australia and I think towards the end of my time there just weren't fitting together. Cycling was just a completely condemned sport there. What I mean by that is I haven't experienced the kinds of dislike towards cyclists that I experienced while living in Sydney. It's not a bike-friendly city. People are incredibly privileged and rushing around as if they should be the only ones on the road. And I had plenty of run-ins, not only with regular people, I had plenty of run-ins with police who didn't like cyclists. I remember watching people get fines for track standing on their bike at the traffic lights because police decided that was a dangerous activity on a bicycle. So they're fining cyclists for track standing and drivers are trying to run you off the road for exercising. So again, around that same time, I thought to myself, you know what, I'm either going to die riding my bike or I'm gonna have to quit cycling. And then my third option was I can move to Europe and live a life where cycling is an accepted way of life and it's an accepted sport. And I don't feel like my life is under threat and like I'm an outcast for wanting to do this sport that I love. Alrighty, so just stopped to grab some water. I'm about 105 Ks in, so I've still got quite a way to go, but I thought I'd just answer a couple of the quick questions while I can. First one, Marmite, yay or nay? It is a nay from me. Marmite, Vegemite, don't want either of them, nowhere near my food. Maybe I'm un-Australian or not very British. Maybe I just have good taste, but yeah, big nay on the Marmite from me. Another one, when I'm going through the rare I hate this ride kind of moment, what do I do to keep myself going? That moment does happen a bit. Sometimes when I'm absolutely cooked, it's usually in really hot weather, i.e. the ride that I did with Ben last year in France that I made the 3-day vlog about. In those sorts of situations, I guess you just have to grovel through it. There's no way that you can convince yourself it's great. You can't tell yourself that you're lucky to be out here bike riding, because it just doesn't work that way. In that situation, you just have to know, okay, I just have to keep pressing. I'm eventually going to get there. One foot in front of the other, and eventually you will reach your destination. I mean, the destination doesn't get any further away. You're only going to get closer to it. So just bear that in mind when you're in moments of extreme pain on the bike. Have I had any major cycling related injuries and how have I gotten through them? I'm probably one of the luckiest people I know, touch wood, when it comes to cycling injuries. I have had a few falls and I've had some shit grazes and things like that, but I have been lucky enough not to break any bones. Again, touch wood. I've had a little bit of time off the bike, but I've just told myself, you know what, eventually when you're better, you just get back on. I feel really bad for people who've been extremely injured, and I'm very thankful that I haven't been in that situation, so I don't want to comment too much on it because I really haven't been in any contexts that have been truly destructive to my mental health. I do know if something was to happen and I had to have a long time off the bike, I probably wouldn't enjoy it, but I'd also recognize that, okay, well, if I'm there and I'm in a situation where my injury is healable, eventually I'll be able to get back on and ride. I mean, I think it's very easy to get carried away with feeling in this moment like you should always be able to ride, but there's a joy to the progression of coming out of an injury as well. I think you've got to focus on that feeling of positivity when you're recovering and when you're coming back to form. That's a feeling in life that I think you can only get from having those downtimes. Being at your lowest lows so you can climb your way out is often a way to experience an incredible feeling of joy, not just the joy of always riding around injury-free. One more before I jump back on the road. How do you work your way up to long rides? I think sometimes you just have to be a little bit naive with it. I think there's a beauty to the naivety of just going out and setting yourself some stupid big day and trying to get round. I'd only been riding for about 2 years when I did my first 300-kilometer ride. I just went out one day and I was like, I'm gonna do 300 kilometers today and I don't care what's gonna happen along the way and I'm just gonna get through it. I did actually get a hip injury as a result of that ride because I was sitting incorrectly on the bike, but I got it done and the naivety was what got me through. It was just setting myself some big task and just saying, you're gonna do this. In a more educated way, I would probably suggest that if you're working your way up to a big ride, it's to do some smaller rides and just work your way up. You need to get your head around it as much as your body around it. So start out with your first 50K ride, your first 100K ride, then aim for 200Ks, make sure you eat along the way, make sure you're not uncomfortable on the bike. If you do 200 kilometers and you're coming back with some kind of injury, it's a good indicator that your bike is not fitted correctly. But if you're not and you come back and you're just tired, just go again when you're ready. Have a good rest and go again. Eventually you'll work your way up to doing 300-kilometer rides quite easily, and then you might come up with some stupid plan like I have to ride across the Pyrenees in a couple of days, but I'll tell you guys more about that later. I'm just going to jump back on the bike, keep descending, and I'll chat to you guys more soon. Okay, so I've just come down the Col de Tosses into Ripoll and then out the other side. I'm now climbing up the Col de Coubet. This is about a 15-kilometer climb that heads over towards Olot. Actually just got passed by Luke Durbridge. He said to me as he went past, I'll wait for you at the top. Looks like he's doing an effort. And so this leads me into my next question while I'm cruising along here. Someone's asked, what's your favorite training session? One of the things for me is that I don't have a coach, but I do understand quite a bit about my own body and about how to train it. So my favorite training session really depends on the time of season and what I'm aiming to do. I'm a very big fan of 3 different kinds of efforts. I do a lot of long zone 3 efforts. So this is efforts for me at around 270 to 290 watts for about 30 to 40 minutes at a time. The reason these are good is it gives you a really big platform to work from to get stronger. When you do 30 or 40 minutes at a certain zone where you're pushing relatively hard without absolutely blowing your doors, is that your body gets used to sustaining a large amount of power for a long period of time. The whole point of training is to get your body to do something it's never done before and to get it to adapt. So for me, the zone 3 30-40 minute efforts are the one to do. The other one I like is the 20 minutes around threshold. I do a set of 2 by 20s. Sometimes I do them where I do a varied spike every 4 or 5 minutes just to vary up those 20-minute efforts. And then the third session I do a lot of is the 3-minute VO2 sessions. So I did this in my video where I reviewed the Tubalitos, where I did 3 minutes on, 3 minutes off times 3, and then I did that 3 times. So what that's good for is getting your body used to pushing a lot of power, and then when you have that 3 minutes off, you only kind of recover, you don't fully recover, and then you go again pushing that 3 minutes of VO2, so about zone 5. And what that does is that gets your body used to, again, using oxygen in a really efficient way and recovering really, really quickly, which again is good for racing. So those are 3 sort of go-to sessions I do, not all at the same time and not all even in the same block, but I will do those on varied weeks and depending on the time of the season. Yo,
Hi, mate.
howdy, how's it going? Alrighty, so just caught up to Luke Durbridge. He's also riding back from Andorra today. Much quicker than I am though, doing some efforts on the climbs. The next question I have on the list is, if I could ride anywhere in the world, get on a plane and ride anywhere, where would I ride? I'm actually gonna ask you first. If you could ride anywhere in the world, where would you be going?
Well, to be honest, I hate to say, probably today. Honestly, like...
Since you caught up with me or
Yeah.
before?
We've got a tailwind, it's 25 degrees. We're riding from Andorra back to Girona. Like, honestly, it's one of the nicest rides because it's probably mostly downhill.
Yeah.
And you feel like a bit of a hero all the way home. But
you're moving quick.
yeah, at this moment, for sure, yeah.
Yeah. And then what about if we had to ban Girona from the list?
Ooh,
Just to give a different
give a
context.
different context. Well, last week I did a bike trip down to Pirat, out of Cambrils.
Still in Catalunya.
South of Spain. Sorry, I'm still in Catalunya.
That's all right, we can have Catalunya.
Down there's pretty amazing, but
That was with Rich and...
yeah, with Richard and Dion Smith and Mark Donovan. It's a good trip.
Yeah, nice. And just as we come up to the top of this climb, I'd probably say, I'd want to say the same. I mean, this is such an amazing ride. I've made multiple videos out of it. It's incredible. Somewhere else, I think the Dolomites are probably the most beautiful place I've ridden, but I do think Girona has this nice sort of natural beauty that's just super, super enjoyable.
Can't get better roads in Catalunya.
Alrighty, that is a big ride out the way, done. Back to Girona, about 219 point something or other kilometers. Really good to bump into Durbo. It's such a great ride riding back from there, but bloody hell, it's tiring. You get into that last half an hour. We had a headwind for a majority of the last hour and a half, and Luke actually turned off to do some extra efforts, and then the road was blocked, so he caught back up to me, and then we rolled into Girona together. For anyone who has watched all the way through to here, I just wanted to drop a quick little sort of sponsor thing in here. Not that they've asked me to, but Attacker have actually given me a discount code for some kit, and so I've popped a discount code down in the description. I'll pop it here on the screen, so if you guys do want some Attacker summer kit, I was wearing the mesh jersey today, which is their new mesh jersey. It's super, super comfortable and really good on a hot day like today where it got up to, I think, almost 41 degrees it said at one point. I just want to answer a few more questions before I go because I realized I did a lot of talking, but I didn't actually get through all the questions. There was a lot of great questions. How do you get back into riding after an extended period off the bike? I think the best thing you can just do is just jump on and start riding. There's no magic formula. Start out with some easy rides and then slowly build up. Your body's going to adapt. That's part of the joy of progression, and it's part of the joy of training, is that your body will adapt if you give it time. So start slow and then build up from there. Are there things you want to achieve as a cyclist? Yeah, I mean, for me, my achievements, the things that I want to achieve in cycling range across a whole bunch of stuff. I want to have a lot of good times. I want to get some race results. I want to experience new kinds of riding as well. So yeah, the things I want to achieve are not necessarily just purely based on racing and races, but on experiences. I live my life really based around experiences, and that includes a broad range of experiences. I can say I'm almost lucky lucky to not be a professional road cyclist because it gives me the ability to do gravel races and the ability to go and go bike packing if I want to. So what do I want to achieve on the bike? Well, I think it's just have the most broad kind of perspective and experience on riding bikes in general that I can possibly have. This includes mountain bike riding. I've got a hill climb time trial race tomorrow, Catalan Champs on Sunday, which is in 2 days time. I'm gonna do some gravel bike packing. I've got a gravel race coming up in Slovenia, which by the time this video goes live, I'll almost be in Slovenia. So yeah, lots of different things that I want to achieve on the bike. If you could ride one stage of the Tour de France, which team would you like to be a part of that day? Cool question. I mean, riding the Tour de France would be an absolute dream, even if it was just for one day. As boring as it probably is to say, I think I'd actually like to ride with Ben in the Tour. We've joked about how good it would be if we could ride together. Not that I'd be keeping up. I think in a race context, Ben would absolutely flatten me, and so would everyone on his team, so would everyone on the World Tour. But I think that it would be fun to race a stage of the Tour de France with Ben, just because he's a mate, and it'd be good to see if I could set him up for something. AG2R, if you are listening, I'm very happy to do an unpaid stagiaire for you, or just get me along to one of your training camps. Maybe I can document what's going on, and we can show how strong your riders actually are. How do I get over the fear of descending? I'm paranoid my wheels will give way around corners. I think that it's really important to start slower than you want to, maybe. Don't aim for speed first, aim for being really, really smooth around corners and build up that confidence over time. Don't try and launch into it and just go hell for leather. The best way you can get faster is actually to start slower and become more smooth, and then smooth eventually becomes fast. Definitely there's a few other little tips that I will put a link up to a video up here that you can watch if you'd like to, with Ben, where we talk about some techniques for descending well, things like putting your outside foot down, doing all your braking before the corner, late apexing corners. These are all things that, while they can't give you confidence, they can definitely give you technique, and the technique can eventually be applied to give you more confidence. How does one live life on his own terms? For me, the big thing is that I have learned not to have lifestyle creep. Lifestyle creep is where no matter how much money you earn, you bring your lifestyle up to match that amount of money, and you continue to spend the amount of money that you have. I've learned to keep my lifestyle relatively cheap. This is largely due to the fact that my entire cycling experience is paid for. Don't get me wrong, I'm very aware of that. I have my bikes provided to me, I have my kit provided to me. A majority of my cycling is paid for, which is a majority of my lifestyle, and if I didn't have that paid for, I would be spending more money on cycling. But because I'm based in the bike industry, and because I'm doing a job that's very lifestyle based, as in making videos and taking photos and working in cycling, I don't have lifestyle creep. I just work the amount of time that I need to work to earn the amount of money that I need to earn. Of course, I would like to have more nice things. I'd like to drive a nice fancy car or have a big house, but those things at the moment where I'm at in my life are not important to me. What is important to me is living a life that I'm really happy with and I'm really proud of. Getting to ride my bike as much as I do, getting to do trips like the last few days where I've been up in Andorra. These are what's important. And so what I've done is I've focused really heavily on finding a way to get myself to that point where I'm able to do these things, and not thought to myself, oh yeah, but I need to buy a house, but I need to support a family, but I don't need to do these things that I think a lot of society has placed pressure on us to do. My lifestyle is incredibly happy, and again, I say it a lot, but I am fortunate for what I have. So in a roundabout way, I would say I think it's just important to focus on prioritizing the right things in your life. And if that's lifestyle, focus on your lifestyle. Don't focus on the frivolities of having additional things, material possessions and things like that. What can we expect to see on your channel this year and beyond? One of the big things for me in this lifestyle-based life is the fact that I do want to travel based around making videos and making content. So I have some trips coming up, which is going to mean that you guys are going to see more travel on my channel over the next little while. Hopefully you enjoy that. The other thing is I really want to do more with pro cyclists. It's clear to me from you guys, from the feedback I get, that the videos with pro cyclists are always the ones that go best. So yeah, if you guys haven't subscribed yet and you want to see more with pro cyclists like Luke, who you saw today, like Ben, like Paddy, you would have seen in the last episode, definitely give the channel a subscribe and follow along for the journey. White wine, red wine, or rosé? I'm actually definitely a white wine person first and foremost. There's a few really good Catalan white wines that I drink quite often. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see every so often I put something on my story, but I would say a big shout out to Oriol Artigas and also Tony Carbo. There's a very specific bottle of white wine from Catalonia called El Pages Content by Tony Carbo. It's a really nice bottle of wine. And finally, and this is probably the most important one, this is why I titled the video this, Why did you leave your life in Sydney to live in Girona? If this entire video hasn't explained it yet, I think I would say that it's to live the life that I live. It's Friday afternoon and I've just ridden my bike back from Andorra through a country border and across into Spain where I live and where I love living. And this is just one small example after 5 years of living here as to why I'm firmly fixed here now. Living in Australia was amazing, and at some point in my life I might be back there, but the reason I left and the reason I moved over here is because I'm able to do things like this really, really easily. I'm able to duck up to Andorra for a couple of days and then come back down. I'm able to fly across to Slovenia and go gravel riding like I'm about to do. Cycling in Australia is unfortunately not a sport that is loved by the general public. There are a growing number of people who are getting into cycling, and that makes me really happy, but I never felt like my life as a cyclist fit well in Sydney. It's just too busy, it's just too crowded, and moving to another city in Australia I didn't think was going to make me happy. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to give myself an entirely cycling-based life, and I moved to what I consider the epicenter of cycling in the world, that is Girona, and also being in Europe where I can access races, I can access professional cyclists, I can hang out and ride my bike on some of the smoothest roads and the most beautiful places like I did today. I can bump into friends, I can enjoy riding my bike in the mountains, and I can live a life that I'm genuinely really happy with and very thankful for. So that is all of my reasons as to why I upped and moved my life from Sydney to Spain. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next episode of Tristan Take Video very soon. All right, adeu.